Hi, my name is Haley Friedt. I am a lifelong Rapid City resident, and I attended RCAS schools K through 12, and then still stayed in South Dakota and went up to BH. So a South Dakotan through and through.
I am Avery Friedt, Haley's sister, and I have all the same credentials as her, K through 12 at RCAS, and then college at BH.
Awesome. So today you wrote about a food fight.
Oh, no.
And I was hoping that you could tell the story of the food fight and your experience at Dakota Middle School.
Yeah. So it's very much like you see in the movies. Just a wild food fight. And this was pretty fresh into cell phones being a thing for middle schoolers, I guess. And so there had been a big, not group chat at that point, but just mass text sent out apparently that this was going to happen. And I didn't get it, so I didn't know about this. So when everybody came in and somebody ran in and said, there's a fight upstairs, and which is suspicious because nobody was coming down from upstairs anyway. And so all the teachers ran out to go see what was happening, and the kids closed and barricaded the doors. So there were no adults left except the cafeteria staff. And then food just started flying. And mashed potato day, mashed potatoes everywhere. There were like apples being thrown, and then eventually some trays were thrown even when we ran out of food. So it was messy, and at the time it was very thrilling. But then when the teachers got back in and shut the whole show down, and we had to go around with buckets and mop from floor to ceiling, even under the tables, it wasn't quite so fun. So some regrets, but it's also just a fun memory to look back on and say I was a part of a middle school food fight.
What year do you think that was?
Oh my goodness. 2010, maybe?
9 or 10.
Yeah, 2010.
And were the instigators ever, did they have more consequences, or was everyone kind of treated the same?
Oh, instigators definitely had more consequences once they figured out the mastermind behind the mass text. Yes.
And Haley, you talked about a sleepover that you got to do at the building. Can you tell that story?
Yes. So thrilling, but in different ways. So at Dakota Middle School, and I believe the other middle schools did it as well, they had what we used to call Natural High Day. So it was a day where you did something, alternative to school. So instead of going to your classes, you'd have a movie day or like a day at the park, Bear Country, Reptile Gardens, just something like that. And for the 8th graders, it was 8th graders only. You could spend the night in the gym at the middle school. And so 6th and 7th grade, I knew, 8th grade is the year. And I actually don't even know if I participated in 6th and 7th grade because I only had eyes for the slumber party at the school. So come 8th grade, I actually still don't remember if you just stayed after class on that day or if your parents dropped you off. I just know I was excited. I packed my bag with probably enough stuff for a 4-night sleepover. It was one night, but we get to the school, and the first thing we did was we walked to dinner. So that's when BJ's, I guess I don't know if it was called BJ's still, but the sub shop that's now an insurance building, we went there and we had dinner, and then we walked back to the school. And they pretty much said, the school, you have free reign, not into individual classrooms, but hallways were open and the gym was open. And before that, though, now that I'm really thinking back, they did take us on a quick tour of the school. So that was just incredible. Dakota Middle School, as I know it, has a ton of history. And so they took us into the basement where they had the old tunnels and stuff. And they showed us weird little creepy rooms, some old discarded, theater chairs. And so you're really setting up the night for some slight terror. We were all like, oh, the school's haunted already, And then they took us and kind of toured us around parts of the school that we were never allowed to go in. So I remember there was like this spiral staircase and these storage areas, and they showed us like, oh, like over the stairs, this is where the teachers store stuff, which like not overly exciting, but when you don't understand the building, I mean, it's super, super cool. So then they let us have free reign of the school, and obviously, you know, we played some hide and seek because we had a whole school at our disposal, and all of us did experience some kind of paranormal happenings. It was a little like spooky. There was this door. I was convinced somebody was in it, and I think someone else was with me, and it was by the elevators on like the right side of the school when you're looking at it. And there was a door, and I heard it jiggle, and we're like, oh, we got him, you know, and I tried to open it, and it was locked. And we like knocked on the door, and we're like, who's in there? And nothing else happened. And then we get back to the gym, and everybody else is there, so no one was in that room. So pretty dang spooky, scary. And then the rest of the night, I know there was movies playing. We were playing volleyball in the gym while movies were playing. We all set up our sleeping bags on the floor, and I don't actually think any of us slept. I mean, in typical like sleepover fashion, we stayed up all night, and we drank our soda, we ate our snacks and our candy, and it was a blast. The only negative part of it, I'll never forget. I had my iPod Nano, and it was still pretty new, and I was super excited about it. And so I brought it to this event because I had to show everybody. I mean, cell phones were still kind of new, and the iPods were a big deal. And I had a colored Nano and everything. It was great. And I threw it in my bag, and that morning, like after the sleepover, there was a bunch of extra soda, and I put it in the bag too. And in my head, I'm like, that probably isn't smart, but we're just going to get home. And the soda exploded on the Nano. So the only downside of that weekend party, that was the Dakota Middle School 8th grade girls sleepover. But that casualty was worth all of the fun.
How many girls do you think were there?
Honestly, like, I know that there had to have been more than I'm thinking. I think it was about 20. But it could have been like 30, probably no more than that.
I think mine was 20.
Okay.
I think
I mean, it was an
20.
in-demand thing. Like, you signed up for it. And I can't remember, but I think you had to
be passing all your classes, no missing assignments, and I think you had to have a certain GPA at the end of all of it.
Yeah.
Like, attendance was one.
Yes.
You had to have missed no days of school. And so if you qualified for that, you got first dibs, and then it was kind of like a stair step down. But if you were down below first dibs, you were not getting spooky sleepover.
No, I worked my tail off in 8th grade for this sleepover.
Just for that.
It was that was the
Vital.
only carrot at the end of 8th grade, is I wanted that sleepover, and it was a blast.
Are there any other memories from your Dakota days that you want to share?
Dakota was just fun. I loved it. One of the other coolest things that I actually one time had to Google because I thought I was lying to somebody because it seems so unreal. Jane Goodall came and spoke when I was in 6th grade. So 2006, the art classes like decorated the stage, and then like they called us all down for an assembly, and it was Jane Goodall, like the Jane Goodall. And the art class did an incredible job on the stage with decor. We created like fake, jungle trees and plants and stuff like that. But Jane Goodall, she just came and spoke at our school.
Did it have anything to do with the mural in the hallway? Or do you know anything about the mural in the hallway?
The mural was before that, and it was before I had even started at Dakota. I can't remember exactly what the deal with that was. And then, yeah. I remember another time, there was this energy drink called Crunk, and there was a fellow rapper who was friends with Lil Jon, and we just thought it was the biggest deal ever because, like, it wasn't Lil Jon that came to our school, but one of Lil Jon's friends came to the school to promote the energy drink, which, looking back, like, as a 28-year-old adult, I'm like, why were we promoting an energy drink to middle schoolers? I can't think of a worse idea, actually. And then to have, like, a gathering after to promote the energy drink at a middle school. But those are two at the top of the list of, wow, there's a lot, but two of my favorites, in addition to the slumber party.
One thing that I really enjoyed was how seriously student council was taken back then. Like I say, I work at a middle school now, and it's not as big of a thing, but back when we went to middle school, like, you wanted to be student council president and you wanted to be on student council. So I know that both of us campaigned very hard. Our parents helped us, and like, you had to be voted in. So I went around with dum-dums that had little tags on them that said, "Don't be a dum-dum, vote for Avery." Passed out suckers everywhere. I'm sure the teachers hated me. And I won president, which also came back to the food fight. Because I was involved and I was student council president at that time, they were going to strip me of my title. And I had to cry and say, I didn't even throw anything, which is true. I said, I didn't even throw anything. I sat under the table, like, please don't take this away from me. So I kind of had to beg, but back then it was just so cool, and student council got to plan everything. Mm-hmm. One time we did a whole, like, performance to Thriller, like the entire student council and a bunch of teachers. We all dressed up and had practice after school all the time, and then performed at, like, Spirit Homecoming, whatever it was, Spirit Days. And it was just crazy cool. And then the talent shows, too, that student council put on. We don't do anything like that at my school now, but it was a big thing. You did auditions, and your performances were on that beautiful stage. And so after school, like, you got to invite all the parents, and if you made it into the talent show, you got to perform. And it was videotaped, and it was just, again, like a movie. You had a whole big talent show and auditions, and as student council president, I got to place my vote for who got to get in. I like to think I was very impartial and fair, but who knows? I was 13.
Okay, so one last story. This was after I had been at Dakota as a middle schooler. It was in 2015, so I was in college at this point, and I've worked downtown since like 2013. So you start to know people, and you start to really know what's going on. And I was a fan of Jack White, still am, but there were a handful of states that he hadn't performed in yet. So he was doing this really cool thing where he announced the morning of that he would be performing in that state, you know, and he wouldn't tell this, like, you didn't know anything until that morning. He would give the city and the state and the location for where you needed to get tickets. And the tickets, they were $3. You could not hold spots in line for anybody. You couldn't buy them online. It was cash only. They slapped a wristband on you, so you needed to be there to get tickets. And I remember kind of hearing a little bit of rumors at first, and then I had to sign a lease that morning, and I'm like, we gotta go. Like, we really have to sign this lease. And I got going, and I told my roommate at the time, I'm like, hey, I gotta go to work. I think Jack White's performing today, but we're not really sure, you know. And I got to work, and I found out for sure he was performing, and you had to be at Ernie November to get your tickets, and you had to line up. And my boss at the time, we're still great friends to this day, but I just told her, I said, hey, Pam, Jack White's in Rapid, and I need to go, and I need to be in line, like, now. Like, I needed to be in line, like, 20 minutes ago. Like, is it okay if I go? And being the wonderful person and boss and supporter that she is, she's like, yeah, of course, you know, go stand in line. We stood in line for a very, very, very long time, and the line was all in that field area, you know, next to Ernie's, and wild, but you're making friends in line, you're hanging out, great, great vibes. And I get my ticket, I go right back to work, and I work my shift, and then after work, I just walked over to what I knew as Dakota Middle School, and it was open seating, ran in my cousin in line and a bunch of friends, and we all went in, and it was the coolest show. It was a completely, like, old school set. Like, he had these old microphones, and he said, no phones, like, absolutely no phones. I have professional photographers on the tour. They will take all the pictures you could ever want. There will be a link for it online. Like, just please be in the moment, you know. And we were in the moment. It was great. It was still like just this surreal type of moment. And I couldn't have thought of a better setting than that historic theater because it really fit the vibe of what he was trying to accomplish. And it was just, I don't know, it felt like a very full circle, like fun moment, you know? And then later that night, by fluke, I got to meet Jack White outside of Dakota, like he was leaving. And him and his crew were just like meeting people. But it was just the coolest thing. And I couldn't believe that Rapid City at my middle school was Jack White. Fantastic.
Good vibes radiating off of that building.
100%. It's a magnificent place. Like, magnificent.
Thank you again.
Yeah. That was the coolest.